Now, women's rights are the fundamental human rights that were enshrined by the United Nations for every human being on the planet nearly 70 years ago. These rights include the rights to live free from violence, slavery, and discrimination, to be educated, to own property, to vote, and to earn a fair and equal wage. Now, the clarion call for a redoubling of efforts by leaders in governments, the private sector, and civil societies to reinvent in policies and in legal and in social frameworks, basically things that will achieve gender equality and inclusion, has become a mainstay. Female leaders have voiced their fears that full gender equality may not be achieved and that it is actually being eroded. Joining us right now to discuss the erosion of women's rights is the 63rd president of the International Women's Society of Nigeria, Ibiwunmi Akinola. Lovely smile you have, by the way, so soothing. Thanks for joining us today on the morning show. So let's talk about this, the erosion of women's rights. Let's bring this up from the perspective of the COVID-19 pandemic. We are in this, and a lot of women have actually been on the receiving end of a lot of the disparities that we have seen. Let's talk about that and how women have been influenced negatively through this pandemic.
Good morning, and thank you for having me on your show. This pandemic have really affected women. What we have seen is that because a lot of women earn their income daily, it's difficult for them when during the lockdown they couldn't feed their children. It was a very, very difficult time for them. We work very closely with widows, and we empower them by helping them with their businesses. And what is happening with the widows, because they can't trade every day, it's almost impossible to feed their family. So the COVID have particularly affected have really affected the women, and we need to find other ways to support women during emergency situation. Nobody expected COVID.
All right, that's right. Still on the erosion of women's rights, which has been a discussion that has lingered for so long. We've witnessed cases of women's rights abuses from even the government-owned institutions and religious organizations, as we've seen in the case of Wavera Omozua, who was raped in a church, and Barkat Bello, who was raped and killed in her house in Ibadan. Many have argued that the Nigerian society is not safe for women, and given that some of our laws do not protect women, I mean, that's one of the main reasons. Walk us through what you think that could be done to, further alleviate the stress that we have in our society.
This is a discussion that we always have all the time. And first of all, rape can be tackled through educating the men. Naming and shaming is good, and it's more positive, and it's also preventive. Another thing is, one of the things we need is prevention. When we educate our men and when we educate the women as well, as to what levels, in all levels of the society, because we find quite a lot of women in the rural areas and sometimes even in the cities do not understand how to protect themselves. But I think education is one of the most important things in helping to erode completely rape, educating the men, educating the women to be able to say no when they need to say no and not be afraid. We just have to find a way to educate both men and women.
It is essential to educate both of them. We've, just like my colleague just said, there's been so many situations. In fact, there was a documentary by the Human Rights Watch some time ago that documented how a lot of women and young girls, about 43 of them, were being abused and, just living in very, very difficult situations within the internally displaced camps, and I'm just asking, do you think the government is doing enough to keep these women and young girls within this IDP camps safe? Do you think the government is concerned about the mental well-being of these women? Because at the end of the day, especially for the young girls, these girls are going to grow up to be the same women who raise other girls. So do you think there's just a cycle of just negative mental energy based on what we are seeing with how our government treats these people within the camps and handles cases of abuse as well?
I always say something. The government is the government. It takes every single one of us to do something. The government can only try their best. There's so many young girls in the IDPs. There's so many things that, aside from the government, they are doing what they know best to do, and they're doing what they can do. But I strongly believe that it's also a lot. We have to also go there and help. We have to do something starting from us, whichever way we can, to support the government. There is a lot that we can do as a community, as women, to help these girls. The government has a lot to do. They still need to do more. They still need to support by funding the IDPs, but through education. Education is so important. I keep saying it, and the government needs to actually move politics out of education. Government needs to work with anybody, any group that is ready to work with these young girls. It's very important that we understand that the government will do their best, but we as a community, and particularly we as women, we need to work on helping and supporting and making sure that this is totally eradicated. It's a really sad situation. And a few years ago, we went to Borno, the IDP, as a society, International Women's Society Nigeria, and we actually went into the IDPs and we supported them. So if more groups can join the government in supporting and going in there to educate and to counsel, there are a lot of us that are mental health specialists. We can easily help. We can use our resources to get mental health practitioners to join, to go into the IDPs. So I want to say that, yes, the government still needs to do more by supporting the IDPs and the girl child, but also we as women, we also need to support in any way with all our resources and all our networks as much as we can, is what I would say.
Well, that brings me to my next question. You know, as the president of the International Women's Society, I would like for you to first give us a general overview of what the society is all about and what it's been able to do. I know you just mentioned the IDP camp. I'd like to know what your fight has been against, and also, what you've done with discrimination and the violation issues affecting women all around.
Okay, so International Women's Society was established in 1957. It is 63 years old, and we're the first indigenous charity organization. So we've been around for a very long time. We have different projects that support women, particularly. We started with a day nursery in Yaba just to support the women in the market, and it's still in existence till now. We've tried also by establishing a skills acquisition center, which we train and support disadvantaged girls and women. We focus on adult literacy, sewing, and just the soft skills, the different soft skills that help support the woman. Because I'm going back to what I said earlier, education is so important. When we educate a woman, then they're able to be financially independent, and they can actually understand what has to do particularly with them. We also have, as International Women's Society, we have an orphanage in Ijebu-Ode, where we actually feed and they go to school and we take care of them. Especially, we have both boys and girls, but even though we are a women's society, we also, the most and the one that is actually more focused on women is we also give scholarship, because one of our focus is education and financial independence for women. So education, we sponsor students, we give them scholarships, and then finally we have a youth library where we go every Wednesday. We go into the wards and we talk to the patients, we give them books, magazines, and then we have widows where we empower them, we counsel them, we try and there's a lot that have happened to the widows, and so what we try to do.
Sorry to interrupt you here, but we'll just take a few messages, and when we come back, we'll continue on the conversation. Do stay with us. Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. We're still with the president of International Women Society, Ibumi. Thank you for staying with us. I wanted to just shift gears. You know, when it comes to reproduction and the rights of women in Nigeria, abortion, a highly controversial topic which is governed by two laws in Nigeria. You know, the Penal Code in the north and the Criminal Code is, however, against the law in Nigeria. What is your take on this topic?
With abortion, and my personal take on this will be that a woman has a right to her body and the decisions she makes concerning her body. I will go back to what I said earlier. We've seen a lot of widows that have been raped. They don't want the child, but they have to keep it because of our laws. What do we do with them? How do we console them? How do we help them? They went into their villages, they raped them, and they're pregnant. They don't know the father, they don't want the child. What do we do with them? So as much as we need to work on how best to change the laws, we have this particular situation that I just mentioned. How do we help these women? They didn't want to be raped, and they didn't want to be pregnant. So my take is we have to find a law that gives women the right to make a choice concerning what they want to do, concerning if they want a child or if they don't. I personally do not believe in abortion, but I've seen so many things that have, I question what do you do in situations where, even health-wise, if this woman is going to be affected because of this pregnancy, she can't make that decision to abort the child. What do you do with that? So it's working with making sure that we change the law and making sure that we can put in certain areas where it needs to be looked into to make that decision that a woman should respect, should have the right to respect and make a decision concerning what they want to do with their body.
Thank you for that. Now, still on how women can just live a better life within Nigeria, what social and political barriers would you say stand in the way of women's rights? And what steps can individuals, the women themselves, and the government take to address some of these issues, violence against women, and of course, gender inequality?
Okay, so let me first of all say something about gender equality. in Nigeria, particularly here, the man is the head of the family, and they are the breadwinners most times. So that gives them that. That's why they tend to be the head. Our culture also makes it almost. It's important that the man is the head, but one of the things we have to be able to do as a woman is you have to, yes, respect the man, but you have to educate yourself so that when you go into an environment where there's a man, you know what you're saying and you qualify and you can be compared with a man. Now, gender equality is difficult because a lot of women are not as educated, and we as in our country also, we do not place a lot of emphasis on the education of the girl child, and because of that there will always be that disparity. But one of the most important things is that we that are literate and educated must continue working with the government, with the law. I think policies are very important in making sure that gender equality is being met. I know that one of the senators in Ekiti State was one of the people that brought up the law for rape, and so we have to start from there. We also must be very, very knowledgeable in whichever field that we want to go into, so that we are able to stand and be able to compete with any man, is what I would say. And then finally, we as women, we have to support each other, mentor each other. And I know a lot of women that do that already. And I'm very positive. We've achieved a lot so far concerning speaking out, saying no to rape, concerning no more violence against women, concerning gender equality. So I'm very positive about where we're going. There's a lot of transformation. A lot of women are speaking out. A lot of women are supporting each other. And so I think that we're in the right track. Personally, that's what I've seen.
I think so too, but still 1 in 3 women have suffered sexual abuse, while the campaign on the end to sexual abuse has been unequivocal on social media. Women who have suffered any form of this abuse have also been encouraged to speak up, like you have just said, and report to appropriate authorities. But women who have suffered this abuse, most especially, have found it very, very difficult still to make a case in the court of law. What is your reaction to this, and what type of therapy measures have you guys adopted in your society to help?
One of the things that we've done in our society is we actually had a webinar a few months ago, and we invited one of the mental health specialists, Dr. Kadri. And one of the things we have done severally, she's actually joined us several times to talk to the women. It's very difficult to live through rape. It's one of the most difficult things any woman can ever envisage or dream of. And mental health, where they can talk about it, is very important. Now, I know a lot of women that are lawyers that are getting involved in government, and they're speaking out and they're joining, and we sent something to the Senate, a memorandum to the Senate talking about saying no to rape, and also making sure that the law is changed. These men must be sentenced. The sentence must be severe. There must be naming and shaming. It's very, very important. If we do that, then I believe most Nigerian men are proud, and their name is very important to them. So it's very important that we make sure that we continue pushing for the law. We continue supporting those. There are a lot of partnerships we have with people working with rape victims and violence victims, where we try and work together with them also. So it's very important that law, support, mental, we've done a lot of that. We cancel a lot because we are all women, and so there's a lot of mentoring going on for rape victims right now, and I think that is very important.
All right, the issue of healthcare for women in Nigeria is still in the front burner. You know, our women still get limited access to sexual and reproductive health care. So what's the likely implication if this is not addressed, and how can we create more awareness on this issue, women's especially among the youth?
For women, health is so important, and I know that Lagos State has more health centers because we have a lot of women, particularly widows, that talk about the health centers being better. So they have the health centers. When we do our programs, we try and bring someone to screen them. The government needs to do more concerning women. I would want the government to actually look for centers for women, where women are being treated, where women can go to, and the service is quick, and they know that once they get there, they can be attended to immediately. So that's very, very important. The next one is, I think that we need to support any woman that wants to work with women in terms of health, because I've seen some communities and some groups that do that, and all they want is just medication.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you so much for your input on the program this morning.